Liverpool against Spurs. It's the late game on Saturday, Shaq. So it's Saturday night in the UK on the back of that 2-2 draw, which was a fantastic watch earlier this season between the sides. On the back of Liverpool qualifying for the Champions League final. It's set up perfectly. What do you think happens at Anfield on Saturday evening?
This is a really tough one to call, I'll be honest. And as much as it's hard to see past Liverpool, given how good they've been, you just wonder if they got enough of a scare at Villarreal in the way that they conceded too early on. But their response, and let me just say this, Jurgen Klopp and the way he's able to adjust at half-time when needed, I'm not sure that there are many better managers in world football in just that half-time adjustment. Okay, that being said, you're now at home to Spurs, who have a lot to play for themselves, with the North London derby to come and top four and all of that, which we won't stop talking about, I'm sure, until the end of the season. But a Spurs team that have also had a significant say in this title race, in the way they went to the Etihad and won at a time when nobody saw anybody beating Manchester City. So now we come into this similarly. Liverpool, who are just running absolute riot, despite the little bump in the road in the first half in the Champions League, as I just mentioned. And Spurs welcoming that. Spurs happy to go there and be party poopers. So it's a tough one to call. I am still thinking that Liverpool get the job done. I don't think it'll be a 3 or 4-0. I think it may be far narrower than that. But it's hard not to see Liverpool winning when they step on the field.
We saw at the Etihad, Spurs don't really change their system too much when they go away from home against so-called better sides. So Kane, Kulusevski, Son, pace on the counter as well. This could be as much about Spurs winning the ball back quickly as it could be about what Liverpool do with it. There's so many different facets of this game that are fascinating.
Absolutely. And listen, we've made a lot about Liverpool's pressing of the ball and their wing backs and how high up the park they go. I think countering that is Harry Kane and his movement. As good a goal scorer as he is so difficult to play up against because of his willingness to drop deep and turn and play balls in behind that back four. So if Robinson and Trent Alexander-Arnold go pressing, or Roberts, excuse me, and Trent Alexander-Arnold go pressing too high up the park, there's space in behind. Is there anybody better at running in behind defenses than Son Heung-min when you're not expecting it? It really is. As you sit and you look at Liverpool and how good they are, as I keep saying, it's hard to see them losing football matches. But then you sit and you look at Spurs and how they can play up against Liverpool's press, and you just think, this is not going to be as straightforward as I just thought when I was only thinking about Liverpool. And that's the test here for Jurgen Klopp. What do Spurs do to counter Liverpool? How do you adjust at halftime if you again need to?
Spurs played a 3 at the back, and Conte's favoured formation is a 3 at the back. They played 3 at the back against Leicester. They've done so for a number of recent games. So I'm charging you with the task of picking either Jota or Luis Diaz to play alongside Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane for Liverpool this Saturday night. Do you go with Luis Diaz on the left and Sadio Mane more through the centre, or do you go with Sadio Mane on the left and Diogo Jota through the middle with Mohamed Salah on the right in both instances? What are you doing?
That's a really good call. If you play in 3 at the back, I would like to see, I think I prefer to see the directness of Luis Diaz to start with. See how Spurs counter that and that kind of 3 centre-backs, the 3 attackers, who drops in deep, who has to stay at home. in the wide areas, how they adjust. I just think Luis Diaz coming off those wide areas a little bit more direct, a little bit more difficult to predict than Sadio Mane. And it gives all three centre-backs a lot to think about in terms of pace, in terms of running in behind. I think maybe that's the preferred option for Jurgen Klopp at this point.
I want to follow up on something that you mentioned at the weekend when we were doing the post-game Spurs against Leicester. And you mentioned your son came out with a rather salient point about, Dad, would you prefer Mane or Son in your team? Where would Son fit into this Liverpool system instead of who, or would he? Shaka Hislop?
I think Son can play anywhere he likes. And let me say this. I right now, given Liverpool's setup and how good they are with who they have, I'm not sure where I shoehorn Heung-min Son into the lineup. But that speaks volumes to who they are. But I also say that with this in mind, given how good Liverpool's front three were when Diogo Jota came in, I thought, well, he'd be a bit part player. He's not going to really start many games, and then he just fit in like in a way that I certainly didn't expect. Then Liverpool signed Luis Diaz, and I think similarly, who is he going to fit in ahead of? And well, Luis Diaz has been probably, well, arguably the signing of the January transfer window. I know that's a discussion we've had before as well, but he certainly deserves honourable mention if he's not the best. And now Heung-min Son, and you asked me that, and while as I sit here, I'm thinking, I'm not sure where he gets in. You know that if he does, it's going to be incredible value. To that point, I saw a tweet go up from ESPN UK this morning about Heung-min Son, and if you don't include penalty goal, he's been the leading scorer in the Premier League since 2020. And that speaks to his value for Spurs. And that's the thing about Heung-min Son. And while I am struggling to sit here and say, well, where does he get in Liverpool's starting 11? If you take Sadio Mane, and does he fit into Spurs as seamlessly as maybe Heung-min Son does into Liverpool if they swap places? And does Sadio Mane have the impact at Spurs that Son has? Does Son have the impact at Liverpool that Sadio Mane has had? Those are questions that I'm not sure we can really answer. And it speaks to how good both those players are for their respective clubs. And how difficult a question that continues to. I really am struggling to find an answer that I'm comfortable with.
I just think you've got a really smart boy who asks good questions.
Got that from his mom, clearly.
I was going to say. Okay, let's end with a prediction, because this weekend could prove pivotal, like I suppose they all could. There's a full mix midweek card as well. So we've got Liverpool against Spurs on the Saturday night in the UK. Arsenal don't play against Leeds until the early game on Sunday, and Man City are in action in the late game on Sunday against Newcastle. So it's a vitally important game for both Liverpool and Spurs as far as the title and finishing fourth is concerned. What happens at Anfield, Shaq?
As I mentioned before, it's just hard to see Liverpool not winning a football match these days. And I think Liverpool win. I think I'm going to go 2-1. So they get over the line, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be an absolute battering. It's not going to be a runaway performance.
Can't wait. Full coverage right here at ESPN.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.